Let's be clear, I don't think regime change wars should be authorized by Congress or the president or the United States should be invading any sovereign nation. But if we are going to live under this system, there should be one bare minimum expectation that we all agree with. No one person should be able to unilaterally drag the United States into military escalation unchecked. Two senators this week agreed with that idea, two Republican senators, and they changed their mind because of a tweet from the president. It's important to talk about what this entire story is about. If we zoom out to the macro, this is not about finding the correct way to invade Venezuela. There is no correct way. It's not about legitimizing US imperialism at all through these minor procedures. But what it is about is putting checks on power, specifically whether or not Donald Trump faces any meaningful limits on how he uses military force. This week, when that moment came, when the pressure was applied, the answer from the Senate was no. There is no checks. Trump should be able to unilaterally do whatever he wants. He's the commander in chief. That is at least what Republican senators, a majority of Republican senators, told us with this vote. The Senate voted on a bipartisan resolution that would have blocked President Trump's ability from using military force in or against Venezuela without congressional approval. The final vote was 50-50, a fully divided Congress, with Vice President J.D. Vance delivering the final vote.
I trust you. Okay. On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50, the Senate being equally divided. The Vice President votes.
I love that he just went up there without knowing whether or not he votes.
Affirmative, and the point of order is sustained.
I love that. It's so funny to me. I don't know. I don't know why we expect vice presidents to have more decorum. But I just feel like before I'd go on TV, I'd want to know whether or not I'm voting yes or no on something. I believe that he knows what he wanted to vote for, like in principle, or like what he wanted to achieve. But it's just funny. He's like, is yes voting for the resolution or is yes voting against the it's hilarious. I love it. The two senators that we mentioned at the beginning of this video are Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri and Todd Young, who both flipped their votes. Previously, they affirmed that, maybe checks and balances are a good thing in democracy. Maybe the president shouldn't just be able to have unilateral control. Maybe we should slow down just our quickness to military might and military intervention in sovereign countries. But they changed their mind. And a big reason why is Donald Trump criticized it both privately. Reports say that he called both of the Republican senators demanding that they change their vote, and publicly. Trump on Truth Social said Republicans should be ashamed of the senators who just voted with the Democrats in an attempt to take away our powers to fight and defend the United States of America. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, and Todd Young should never be elected to office again. This vote greatly hampers American self-defense and national security, impeding the president's authority as commander-in-chief. In any event, and despite their stupidity, the War Powers Act is unconstitutional, totally violating Article 2 of the Constitution, as all presidents and their departments of justice have determined before me. Again, if you read Article 1, Congress has the ability to declare war. That is what is constitutional. These people live in a fantasy world of saying it's unconstitutional to follow the Constitution. Article 1 explicitly says who gets the power to declare war? It is Congress. These senators did not change their minds because Venezuela suddenly became a larger threat. It wasn't because new intelligence came out that changed their perspective on the situation, or they had a moral principle flip completely overnight on whether or not the president should just have unilateral control to declare war. They did it because Trump threatened them, and they chose self-preservation instead of the Constitution, which they claim to support. They know that if Trump calls somebody out because of the cult status that he has developed within the Republican Party, nobody can deter from Trump. And even those small senators that do will eventually flip if they are pushed and bullied hard enough. I need to reiterate again, I oppose military intervention in Venezuela full stop. I don't think that congressional authority would make it more legitimate, and I don't think that imperialism is suddenly acceptable just because there's a vote on it. But that does not mean that checks and balances don't matter. This president that thinks that he can act alone is far more dangerous than somebody who's accountable to anyone. And this resolution was not a vote on whether or not war should be endorsed. It is about saying that Trump does not just get to go to war by himself. We're also shown a very important choice that Congress had to make in front of the American people. Does the legislative body have the right to check presidential power as laid out in the Constitution? Or should senators care more about staying in Donald Trump's good favor? Far too many Republicans chose to stay in Trump's loyalty instead of protect the Constitution that they pledged an oath to. This means that escalation decisions like sanctions, military strikes, and covert operations are increasingly concentrated in the power of one person. That is not stability. That's not a democracy. It's not strength. It is a system that is built on fear and authoritarian control. The real issue here is not that Donald Trump wants unchecked and unilateral control. We already knew that about him. The real question is whether or not institutions designed to stop that type of behavior actually follow through with that, or if they are too scared of criticism from the president to actually do their jobs. Lawmakers and legislators knew that this was the right call. They should have control to declare war. That is why the legislative branch has the power endowed in them in the Constitution. The framers intended that the legislative body is the most democratic, which is why it should have the most power. And yet, they chose to be in the president's good standing. They chose his loyalty over the American people. And it is safer to fall in line instead of actually challenging a president, even if it's something hard to do. Senators were supposed to agree on one basic idea: the president should not have unchecked authority to use military force. And they couldn't even do that. Not because they don't believe that the legislative body should declare war, but because they were afraid of the man at the center of it all and his ability to criticize him and ruin political careers. If Congress is not able to check a president on something as important as war, the problem is not just Donald Trump. It's how spineless the system around him has become.